Keeper of the Lost Cities, Chapter 21. A highly embellished version of the Great Cape destruction spread through the school faster than the wildfires in her old city, and Sophie knew Keith had everything to do with it. Even her mentors had heard about it. Sir Conley joked that they had have to work their ways up in bottling fire in elementalism so she wouldn't burn down the school. Lady Anwen told her in multi special studies that she hadn't laughed so hard in 324 years, and Sir Faxon had to cancel his metaphysics lecture because he snorted lushberry juice all over his clothes. Once again, Sophie could feel everyone watching her as she wandered the halls, except this time they wanted to know her. Kids invited her to sit with them during lunch. They introduced themselves during orientation between classes. They complimented her eyes. Dex told her the next week they were getting requests for brown eyes drops at slurps and burps. He was in the process of trying to create them. Sophie couldn't believe it. Overnight, she had somehow become popular. Grady was relieved when she told him. The more she belonged at Foxfire, the harder it would be for Braun to get her expelled. But she refused to take anything for granted. She still sat with Marilla during lunch. Dex joined them when his detention was over, and Jency slipped in a few days later. But he had reached out to her on the first day, so he was allowed. Plus, her sessions were incredibly challenging. Lady Calvin didn't fail her, but she made her work on the opposite side of the room, which turned out to be a wise decision. Fires and explosions were a regular occurrence. The problem was, Sophie didn't have to learn. She had to unlearn a lifetime of human knowledge, where things like alkahest didn't exist. All the laws she had learned in chemistry were wrong and tripped her up. She had the same problem with some of her other sessions. Levitating was supposed to be impossible, so was catching mine with jars and bottling rainbows. She constantly had to remind herself not to trust her instincts, but they were all wrong, and even where she tried her hardest, she still messed things up. Which was why her telepathy sessions became the highlight of her week. Every skill came effortlessly, and she was amazed at the things she could do with her mind. Tyrion taught her how to shield her brain from the unwanted human thoughts in case she was ever around humans again, and how to transmit her thoughts into someone else's mind. She even learned how to project mental images onto special paper like a physic photograph. For the first time in her life, she didn't mind being a telepath. It was actually pretty cool, and no one could deny her talent. Even Bront wouldn't be able to. Too bad she had to keep it secret. It would have been fun to shut Stina up whenever she teased Sophie about needing remedial studies. Stina still hadn't manifested a special ability, so it would kill her to know Sophie was a telepath, being trained by the greatest telepathy mentor ever. But she'd have to be patient. Stina would learn the truth eventually. Plus, she had other problems. Biana avoided her like the plague, and Sophia had strong suspicions she was keeping Keith away from her. 2 months had passed since she had moved to Havenfield, and except for a couple waves across the hall, she hadn't seen or talked to him. She missed him more than she wanted to admit. The next week, Sophie finally saw Biana waiting for the Leap Master without her snotty friend Maruka, another member of the High Hate Sophie Foster Club, and decided to try reaching out. Biana spotted her and cut in line, leaping home before Sophie could reach her. The sigh Sophie let out sounded more like a growl. What's wrong? Dex asked, catching up with her. Biana, I don't know what her problem is, but I'm really getting sick of it. She's just jealous. She's used to be the prettiest girl in school. As soon as the words left his mouth and he turned bright red. Sophie knew her face had to be redder than his. Neither of them seemed to know what to say after that, so she waved goodbye and leaped back to Havenfield without another word. She came home to total bedlam. Grady and Adeline were struggling to subdue a very angry woolly mammoth, and the gnomes were chasing a small pack of rabbits with antlers. You're just in time, Grady called to her as he ducked under a swinging trunk. He pointed to a lump of trembling purple fur. Can you get the Verminion in a pen? Oh, sure. Thanks. Grady boosted Adeline onto the mammoth's back. The huge hairy elephant trumpeted in protesting, an earth-shaking squeal that left Sophie's ears ringing. Sophie crept toward the purple mound of fur, hoping the Verminion was as timid as it looked. A twig snapped under her foot. His The creature uncurled, revealing a giant rodent face with glassy black eyes, pointed fangs, and bulging cheeks. She had always thought hamsters were pretty cute, but this Rottweiler sized beast was Hamsterizilla, and it looked really ready to trample her just like Japanese city. Nice hamster, Verminian thing, she cooed, taking a step away. Snarl. Hamsterzilla was not impressed. You have to make it chase you to the pen, Sophie, Adeline shouted as she tried to steer her mammoth by its fury ears. How do I do that? Grady dashed after Adeline. Get it mad. But what if it catches me? It won't, Adeline promised. Better run really fast, just in case, Grady added. Sophie knew this would probably end up in the top 50 stupidest things she had done, but she picked up a huge clod of mud and nailed the vermilion in the gut. Growl. She took the hint and bolted for the nearest person, only to realize Grady's plan had a fatal flaw. The Verminion blocked the only exit, and he seemed to know it. She could have sworn his beady eyes were laughing at her. A little help here, she called as the mutant hamster closed in. On it, the gnomes took over, helping Adeline, and Grady raced across the yard, jumping the vermilion and pinned it. Purple fur flew as the beast trashed to escape. Grady grunted. Okay, Sophie, I want you to put one hand on each of his cheeks and press as hard as you can. After a few tries and a lot of snarling, she managed to get her hands in positive and squeeze. The Verminian's jaw unlocked, and an assortment of dead furry things spewed all over the ground. Ew, she whined. I know, Grady agreed. There's a pile of bags and some gloves and shed so you can clean it up. She stared at the mound of flesh and fur. We can trade jobs, Grady offered. The Verminian growled again. Sophie sighed as she trudged to the shed, slipping on the oversized gloves, and made her way back to the pile. I'm so taking a shower after this. She threw dead squirrels and rats and things she couldn't begin to identify into the heavy burlap sack. One moved in her hand and she squealed, jumping back. What? That thing isn't dead. You'd better take it to Adeline, then. See if there's anything she can do. Sophie stared at the curing ball of grey fur, afraid to touch it again. My arms are getting pretty tired here, Sophie. Snarl, the Verminion added. She steeled her nerves and threw the rest of the dead things into the sack. Then she picked up the living creature, trying not to shriek as he trembled in her hands. He was the size of a palm, with enormous green eyes, furry ears, and bat like wings. His tiny chest heaved as he struggled to breathe. Sophie raced across the pastures towards the shed. Adeline, I need your help. Adeline rushed to her side, whipping mammoth wool off her tunic. Sophie held out the suffering creature. Do you think you can save him? Adeline's gentle fingers probed through the fur. He has some deep scratches and his leg looks broken, but we can try. Sophie followed Adeline into one of the stone outbuildings. Beyond the shelves of carefully organized supplies was a space set up like a veterinarian's office. Adeline laid the creature flat on his back on a sterile table, spreading out his limbs and wings. She smeared a yellow salve out over the wounds. Then she set the leg and conjured up an eye drop and a bottle of youth. She dripped a single drop of liquid on his furry lips. Sophie squeezed Adeline's arm as the tiny purple tongue popped out and licked the drop of water. Adeline stared when Sophie's hand touched her. Her eyes turned glassy. Sophie pulled away. Sorry. No, it's. She cleared her throat. Can you keep an eye on him while I help Grady finish up? Sure, she waited for Adeline to leave, then placed another drop of the creatures on the creature's lip. Don't die, little guy, she whispered, watching his tongue pull the water into his mouth. 12 drops later, and his breathing was steady. He curled into a tiny ball. That's a good boy, Sophie cooed, stroking the fur along his back. He rewarded her with a squeaky rumbling in his chest. She smiled, remembering Marty's crackly purr. How's the patient? Grady asked from the doorway. He stood next to Adeline, both of them watching Sophie with small smiles. I think he's doing better. He drank a bunch of water and now he's sleeping. Adeline nodded. That's a good sign. Do you want to wash up and have some dinner? Can I bring him with me? I don't want to leave him alone. Grady grabbed a small cage from one of the shelves and filled it with dinosaur fluff from a nearby barrel before handing it to her. Good job, Sophie. You saved his life. She brought the cage inside and, after an incredibly hot soupy shower, met Grady and Adeline downstairs for dinner. She kept the cage with her at the table to keep an eye on the creature. He had rolled into his back with his mouth open and his tongue hanging out. If it weren't for the chainsaw esque snores vibrating the cage, she might have worried he was dead. What is he? She asked with a mouthful of bratale, a tuber that tasted like sausage. An imp, Grady grumbled. Their trouble. When I was a kid, one got inside my tree house. I have never seen such a disaster. You want to keep him, don't you? Adeline guessed. Sophie shrugged. Maybe. Adeline smiled. You aren't seriously thinking about this, Edda. Have you been around an imp before? Please tell me you're not afraid of a 6-inch ball of fur, Adeline teased. You should have seen my tree house. Plus, they bite. Did you know that? And their bite is venomous. It won't kill you, but it stings a lot. Sophie looked at the tiny snoring body and tried to see the vicious monster Grady was describing. All she found was a cute little lump of fur, whose life she had saved. Grady was tame dinosaurs and yetis. We can handle an imp, Adeline argued. Grady laughed. I can see I'm outnumbered here, but don't say I didn't warn you. Sophie and Adeline shared a smile. Then Adeline helped her bring the cage to her room. Sophie chose a table by the window so the little guy would have sunlight during the day, and crouched during down to check on him. He was still conked out, snoring like a wood chipper. What do you want to name him? Adeline asked. Sophie blushed. I know it's silly, but I kind of like Iggy. Iggy the imp. I like it. She placed her hand on Sophie's shoulder, and Sophie straightened. Sorry, do you mind? No, it's nice, Sophie whispered. It was the first time Adeline had touched her. Adeline held her breath as she used the other hand to brush a strand of hair off Sophie's cheek. Sophie closed her eyes and leaned into Adeline's hand. Her heart seemed to swell inside her chest, filled an empty space she had almost forgotten was there. Her human parents had been generous with hugs and touches, and she hadn't realized how much she had missed those gestures. She held still, afraid to do anything to ruin the moment. Adeline swept her hand across Sophie's forehead again and let out a sigh. You should get to bed. Her fingers brushed on Sophie's cheek as she pulled away. Sophie blinked and nodded. I'll get ready. Good. Adeline smiled, and her eyes glistened with tears. I hope you sleep okay, she added, with a dubious glance at the noisy cage. Me too. Sophie's cheeks still tingled where Adeline's fingers had left tiny trails of warmth. Adeline? She asked as Adeline turned to leave. Adeline's eyes met hers. Thank you. It took Adeline a second to answer. You're welcome. Good night, Sophie. Good night. When Sophie climbed into her bed a few minutes later, it finally felt like home.